Welcome to Echoes of Time, a journey into the forgotten worlds and the secrets they left behind.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into one of the world's most enduring and, let's be honest, most perplexing institutions, the British Monarchy. You might think you know the story, but we're going to peel back all those layers of tradition to show you the modern power machine that's humming away right underneath. All right, so let's start with a little story. Picture this. It's 1982. Some of the greatest cricket players on Earth are about to meet Queen Elizabeth II. But before they can even shake her hand, they get a full-on crash course. How to stand, how to bow, what to say, what not to say. Now, you'd think things might have loosened up a bit since then, right? Well, fast forward to 2019. A whole new generation of sports heroes is meeting the Queen, and guess what? They're handed the exact same rulebook. This isn't just about old-school manners, you know? It's the perfect little snapshot of the mystique and the power dynamic the monarchy is so carefully protected.
And that really brings us to the big question we're tackling in this explainer. I mean, we live in an age of democracy, of transparency, of constant change. So how on earth does an unelected, hereditary family still manage to grab global headlines and wield actual, real-world influence? Is it all just harmless tradition, or is there something else, something much more strategic going on?
Okay, so the first piece of the puzzle, and it's maybe the most cynical one, but it's also the easiest to see, is that the monarchy works as this unbelievably effective, state-of-the-art distraction machine. Whenever the government finds itself in hot water, the royals are there to provide the perfect show. And look, you don't have to take my word for it. When you look at the timeline, a pattern starts to jump out at you. Take 2017. The National Health Service in Britain was in a full-blown crisis. We're talking hospitals failing, not enough funding, and people were getting really angry. Protests were everywhere. Then, right as things were about to boil over, what headline suddenly pops up everywhere? A royal baby is on the way. And just like that, the entire national conversation pivots from a healthcare disaster to what the new royal baby will be named. The crisis didn't vanish, but the public's attention certainly did. And this was not a one-off. Just think back to 2022, to the Partygate scandal. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, got fined for having illegal parties during a national lockdown, a time when regular people couldn't even go to funerals for their own family. The public was absolutely furious. But then, Queen Elizabeth passed away. And for months, literally months, the media was completely flooded with wall-to-wall coverage of her funeral. The Partygate scandal? It was pretty much washed away in this huge tide of national mourning. This playbook is so effective, they even use it to clean up their own messes. Back in 2011, Prince Andrew's name was getting tied up in that horrific Jeffrey Epstein scandal. The credibility of the entire family was really on the ropes. And then, what do you know? A big announcement. Prince William and Kate Middleton are getting married. And instantly, the media's focus flips from a deeply disturbing criminal story to a fairy tale wedding. So you have to ask yourself, right, how is the timing always so perfect? A major crisis erupts and, like magic, a huge royal event appears out of nowhere to change the subject. Are we really supposed to think these are all just happy little accidents? Well, the short answer is no. These are not coincidences. This is a content pipeline, and it's been in the works for decades. Operation London Bridge, which was the code name for the Queen's death, was planned out as far back as the 1960s. And there's a plan for every senior royal. Operation Menai Bridge for King Charles, Forth Bridge for Prince Philip. And these aren't just simple funeral plans, oh no. They are pre-packaged, months-long media events, just sitting on a shelf, ready to be rolled out whenever a big distraction is needed. So what you have is a really simple three-step playbook. Step 1. Public anger starts to build over a real issue. A scandal, government failure, whatever. Step 2, the royal circus comes to town. It could be a wedding, a baby, a jubilee, a funeral, it doesn't matter. Step 3, everyone's attention gets diverted and the original problem just sort of fades away from the front pages. And you know, this isn't some newfangled idea. This is a political tactic that's been around for thousands of years. The Roman poet Juvenal called it bread and circuses. The idea is dead simple. Keep the people fed and keep them entertained, and they won't pay attention to what's really going on. The monarchy is the ultimate modern-day circus.
So let's move on to the next layer, because this influence isn't just about distracting people at home. It actually stretches way beyond Britain's borders into this huge global network of power that's, well, it's kind of hiding in plain sight.
Okay, here's the fact that might actually surprise you. The King of England is not just the King of England. He is the official constitutional head of state in 15 other independent countries. We're talking about places like Canada, Australia, and Jamaica. So wait, how did that happen?
Well, after the Second World War, the British Empire was basically crumbling. Colonies everywhere were demanding their independence. So, in a stroke of genius, really, the monarchy rebranded the entire empire into something that sounded a whole lot friendlier, the Commonwealth of Nations. It was sold as this family of equals, but the way it was structured made sure that Britain and the monarch stayed right at the center of the whole thing.
And this is where you really see the trap. You might think, well, why don't these countries just leave? Gaining political freedom is actually the easy part. Barbados did it in 2021. They removed the Queen as their head of state. But what happened next? Their economy, which relies a lot on tourism, started to struggle. So they had to take a huge loan from the IMF. That's the International Monetary Fund, an organization that's heavily influenced by, you guessed it, the US and the UK. And that loan came with a lot of strings attached. So they basically traded political control for economic control. Getting political freedom is one thing. Getting economic freedom is a whole different ballgame.
So, let's peel back another layer. And this one is fascinating because it's so modern. It's a psychological paradox that explains how, in the age of the internet, the monarchy has tapped into a new, and maybe even more powerful, source of relevance. So first, you gotta get this. Despite all their global influence, their popularity at home has been in a nosedive for decades. In 1985, 85% of people in the UK supported the monarchy. By 2024, that number crashed to just 54%. And if you look at young people, it's even lower. You'd think that spells doom for them, right? But here's the paradox. The two members of the family who are consistently ranked as the most disliked, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, get a whopping 57% of all media coverage combined. How does that make any sense at all? If people dislike them so much, why are they talked about more than anybody else?
Welcome, my friends, to the Royal Hate Watch phenomenon. It is the ultimate psychological trap of our digital world. You see a headline about them that makes you angry, you click it, you rush to the comments to type out how furious you are. You share it with your friends to show them how ridiculous it all is. But here's the kicker. Every time you do that, you're sending a signal to the algorithms and the media companies that this content is important. Your hate is literally feeding the very machine you claim to hate.
So what does this all mean? It means that in our modern attention economy, any engagement is good engagement. Controversy is actually more valuable than adoration. The monarchy doesn't need you to love them anymore. They just need you to pay attention. Your outrage has become their oxygen. And this brings us right to the very core of it all. We've talked about distraction, we've talked about global influence, we've talked about the hate watch economy. But even with all of that, why is the monarchy itself so incredibly difficult to actually get rid of? The answer really comes down to four huge pillars that make the whole institution basically fireproof. First, constitutionally, the entire British political system is built around them. Then culturally, they're just woven into the DNA of the country. They're on the money, they're in the laws, the king is the head of the church. Economically, they are a massive industry: tourism, luxury brands, media, you name it. And finally, there's the psychological pillar. For a lot of people, they're just seen as the lesser of two evils, better than having a divisive elected president.
And that really just nails the ultimate truth of their power. Trying to remove the monarchy from the British state would be like trying to perform surgery on the country's entire identity. It's just too tangled up in everything. And so, they survive. It's not about whether the people want them anymore, it's that the system itself needs them.
And that leaves us with one final thought. We've seen a system that is expertly designed to survive, right? A system that can bend media narratives, that leverages global networks, and even turns public anger into fuel. But if a system is so entrenched that it can't be changed, does that really make it strong? Or does it just make it brittle? Like it's just waiting for that one shock it can't absorb? What happens when the public finally decides that the system itself just doesn't work for them anymore? That is the question that's going to define the future of this ancient institution.
This was Echoes of Time. If you love powerful history stories, subscribe and continue the journey with us.